14 years. That's how long hundreds of 9/11 first responders have been coming to Washington, D.C. to walk the halls of Congress, putting their hearts and souls into the overcoming obstacles that Congress keeps putting in front of them, to get basic fairness, basic decency for the 9/11 community. Sick and dying, they have now come here month after month, year after year, demanding to be heard. It's time for the Senate to end this chapter once and for all. I am amazed that Senator Paul just objected to passing a bill with 73 co-sponsors, bipartisan co-sponsors, a bill that has passed the House of Representatives 402 to 12. Senator McConnell, I call upon you now to keep the commitment that you made to these brave men and women. I urge you to do the right thing by putting the House bill on the floor where it will pass so we can finally let these men and women have peace. And this should be done tomorrow. As Jon Stewart, another tireless advocate for our 9/11 first responders, pointed out in his recent testimony to the House of Representatives, the official FDNY response time to 9/11 was 5 seconds. 5 seconds. Where is the urgency from the Senate today? 14 years versus 5 seconds. Enough is enough. Jon Stewart has spent nearly 9 years lifting up the voices of the 9/11 community and shining a light on the toll our government's indifference has had on their lives. Work he should have never had to do in the first place. But these guys aren't fighting for themselves. They selflessly come here month after month for heroes like NYPD Detective James Zadroga, who died 4,942 days ago. Jimmy was one of the first responders to fall ill, and the bill was originally named in honor of him. Heroes like Ray Pfeiffer, a firefighter and a true giant who first started coming here walking unassisted, then eventually had a cane, eventually a wheelchair, until his body finally lost the fight to cancer 781 days ago. The Senate would be well served to live by his motto, do the right thing, even when no one is looking. Heroes like Detective Lou Alvarez, who just lost his battle 19 days ago, after he delayed his 69th chemo treatment so he could be here to walk the halls of Congress once again with grace and dignity to do the right thing for those who were still suffering. This Senate would be so well served to live by his words too. Please take care of yourselves and each other. Ray Pfeiffer and Lou Alvarez had to spend the most precious thing they had, their time. But they went to Washington, not for themselves, but for their brothers and sisters to help others. It's who they are. It's who the 9/11 community is. Sadly, we've lost more than Jimmy, Ray, and Lou. We've now lost more police officers since 9/11 than on 9/11 itself. We've lost firefighters, construction workers, and other heroes. In the World Trade Center Health Program, 45,000 people are suffering from at least one 9/11 related condition. Already over 10,000 have been certified with a 9/11 related cancer, with more being diagnosed every single day. We know that more responders and survivors will be coming down with cancer well into the future. More will get sick, more will die, as the death toll of 9/11 continues to climb forward. And that means our 9/11 heroes are going to need the VCF program more urgently, in larger numbers than ever before. And we need to finally make this fund permanent. We can't sit idly by as their compensation benefits are cut by up to 70%. This only makes life worse for the people who are already suffering. Passing this bill won't stop people from dying or from getting sick. it won't change what happens to them when they become ill. But it will take the weight off the backs of the family about whether the government will stand by them and provide the financial resources they desperately need and that they've desperately earned. As I've said it before, but today should be the last time our 9/11 responders should have to come to Washington and should have to walk these halls. I appreciate Majority Leaders. I appreciate Senator McConnell's commitment to getting this bill done before we leave for recess. I appreciate Senator McConnell's commitment to getting this bill done before we leave for recess. Senator Paul may have turned his back on our first responders today, but now we have a filibuster-proof bipartisan support of 73 co-sponsors in addition to myself, which means there are no more excuses for those on the other side. I take Senator McConnell at his word, but he needs to stay true to it, and he needs to do it now. I urge him to begin moving forward with an up or down vote, standalone vote, tomorrow, because the minute this bill hits the floor, it will pass. There's no reason to play politics with a bill that received over 400 votes on the House floor. If some of the 26 Republicans not yet on this bill want to obstruct this bill moving forward, then come forward into light of day right now and make your case known to our heroes and to the American people. The truth is, their obstruction isn't enough to stop this bill if the majority leader holds on to his commitment. It's on him now. If Senator McConnell wants to keep his word and pass this bill, he can do it, because it really would be unconscionable for the Senate to ask our 9/11 first responders to come back again, to waste any more of their precious time with their families, in their communities, by walking the halls of Congress in this body to keep fighting for this Victims' Compensation Fund. We should not force them to spend another single day. We need to let the men and women get back to their lives and their families, and we need them to finally be able to breathe. We need to show with our reactions, not just our words, that we have never forgotten what these heroes did for our nation. Otherwise, never forget is meaningless. So let's pass this bipartisan bill now. Now, I want to thank our next speaker, Senator Cory Gardner from Colorado. He has been an outstanding partner in passing this bill, and I appreciate his deep commitment to our first responders. I also want to recognize and thank Senator Schumer, because he has dedicated himself to passing this legislation over the last decade as the clarion call for what's right in this chamber. Without his hard work and without the hard work of Cory Gardner, we would not have such a large bipartisan coalition of 73 senators that have co-sponsored this bill. I also want to acknowledge Senator Murkowski for all of her leadership. She's been helping me and Senator Schumer from the very beginning for many, many years. Thank you.
Thanks, Senator Gillibrand, for an incredible leadership on this very important issue. September 11th, 2001, I was on an airplane, and I was flying out of Boise, Idaho. The plane turned around. We landed at Boise. I didn't know why. We learned once we were on the ground what would happen. My first thought was, how do I get home? The first air that I breathed outside the airport was the fresh, clean air of Idaho and eventually Colorado. But for the people who responded on 9/11, they turned not to home, but to saving their fellow citizens. People from around the country eventually responded to search and rescue efforts, to stand up for those in a time of great need. The first air that they breathed when they entered the scene, the towers, wasn't that of fresh Idaho or Rocky Mountain air in Colorado, but the toxins that could eventually lead, as we've seen just this last month, the death of our heroes. It's time for this Congress to stand up, to be heard, to act. Not one more day should go by where we don't vote on this. Not one more week should go by where we let this falter. Not one more month should lapse without the understanding that we have the backs of those who had our backs on September 11th. 2 weeks ago, I had the opportunity to visit with the men and women of Task Force 1, Colorado Task Force 1. This isn't just a New York issue or a Pennsylvania issue or a Washington issue. This is indeed a United States issue, where these men and women have left New York and are living in each and every one of our states, leading lives that they hope to lead in retirement, continued professions, continued serving of the American people. But our service to them isn't done until this bill is passed and signed into law to give them the comfort that when they stood up for this country, it wasn't forgotten. And so for that time on September 11th, 2001, when people were draping flags over the interstate highways and waving flags in street corners, let us once again have that moment where we come together as a nation, as a Congress, to do something great for this country, to recognize the heroes that responded, so that we will never forget, and they will never forget, that we were with them once and finally for all. Thank you, Senator Gillibrand. Thank you, Senator Schumer.
Thank you. I first want to thank Senator Gillibrand for her amazing leadership on this bill. She has worked, put her heart and soul and mind into this, and we wouldn't be here without her. I want to thank Senator Gardner as well for making this a bipartisan effort, which should have been all along. And I want to say this. We have carried the football 95 yards down the field. We're on the 5-yard line. But there's often fumbles on the 5-yard line, and you don't get it over the line for a touchdown. The person who's got to carry this ball with us now is Mitch McConnell. He's got to put this bill on the floor. Now, it will pass, it will go to the president's desk, and it could be signed this week. We don't need it attached to anything else. You attach a bill that has broad support to something else, that's how fumbles occur. That's how bills don't get passed. This is not just one of those bills. We have always honored those who fought in our wars and have been injured. Well, the first responders are New York's soldiers. Like our armed forces overseas, they ran to danger and risked their lives for our freedom. Is the great American tradition of helping those who helped us in wartime and risked their lives for us in wartime over? Is politics going to engulf this? I don't hear Rand Paul get up on the floor and say, we have to pay for the entire defense budget or the money for our soldiers. That's fine with me. But why is he doing it now? For these first responders, they are no different than our soldiers. We have heroes. Kirsten has mentioned them. Some of the great heroes of the 21st century have names like Zadroga and Pfeiffer and Alvarez. I spoke to Detective Alvarez just a few days before he died. He was hurting. He said to me, I'll never see you again, and I'll never get down to Washington again. But in the name, not in his name, but in the name of all those who need help, get this done. That's how selfless these folks are. They were and still are. And for us not to get this done now, for us to go home without this bill being passed, would show that America's not the America we think it is and want it to be and love. It would show that politics engulfs things, even the most sacred things like these first responders. We cannot let it happen. We won't let it happen. Leader McConnell, put the bill on the floor, not as part of some other grand plan, not as an engine to get other things done, not as a way to hide it behind another bill. Just put it on the floor, plain and simple. Because of Kirsten's great work, it will get a huge number of votes, and the president will sign it, and the first responders will go home. Not happy, but doing the job they want to do. Caring for themselves, their loved ones, and their brothers and sisters who are suffering now, and those who don't even know that they will be suffering in the future because of the horrible stuff that they ingested on 9/11. So we need to do this. We need to do it now. No more games.
Time for one or two questions?
Sure.
Yeah, I gotta.
Is there a particular bill that you're concerned that
Yeah.
the real opposition would be
you know, debt ceiling, you know, things could get bollocksed up. I've heard a rumor that it would be on the debt ceiling. Well, who knows what'll happen when it goes to the House, particularly if debt ceiling doesn't have the CR as part of it. Yeah, you never know what games come up when you try to add it to something.
Senator, different 9/11 first responders we've talked to in recent weeks said this time's different because if for no other reason, Mitch McConnell has Detective Alvarez's badge. Do you think that now Mr. McConnell is handling this in good faith to at least put this on a timetable to get done out of the Senate by the August recess, as he told John Thiel and others?
I do. I believe that if he responds in good faith, he'll put this for an up or down vote on the floor tomorrow.
One last question.
Senator Schumer, I guess that, are you concerned that McConnell is gonna put something on the floor that isn't a deal between Mnuchin and Pelosi?
Well, look, I don't know about, I mean, I've talked with Mnuchin and Pelosi on the phone this morning. This did not come up, but there have been rumors that it would be attached to something else. The best way to get this done is do it now.
Up and down.
Up and down, plain and simple. That's the best way to get it done, as we know. Maybe there'll be good faith to do it another way, but you never know what happens because there are too many players. This is past the House. It has 73 co-sponsors in the Senate and a lead sponsor, 74 total. That's the quickest and easiest way. Let's not play any games. Let's not risk the danger of this failing. I don't think it will because of the good work that was done here, but we're not going to be happy. We're not happy with the ball marching down the field and on the 5-yard line. It's got to go over the goal line. Absolutely. And the best way to do that is for Leader McConnell to put that ball in his hands and carry it across the goal line. He does that by putting the bill on the floor tomorrow.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.